All right, welcome to Live at the League. I'm Emily Kalashewski, Assistant Director for Member Experience and Learning here at the League. We've got a great show for you today, and we're thrilled to be on location here in Clare, Michigan. Here's what we'll be covering. First, Clare's approach to revitalizing its downtown and creative placemaking projects, how the city's partnering with its neighboring townships for growth and infrastructure, and then I'll look at housing needs in Clare and how state level reforms might help as part of our broader legislative update. If you're watching live, please feel free to post your questions in the chat or Q&A box. We'll answer as many as we can throughout the show. Let's get started. First, joining us today from Clare, two leaders, City Manager Jeremy Howard and Mayor Patrick Humphrey. Thanks to both of you for being here. It's great to pop into town. Of course, we hit up Cops and Donuts on the way in.
Of course.
To start, Clare has become a bit of a destination for folks traveling across the state. What's your community story and what would you want people to know?
Start? Well, I think that we try to be as welcoming as possible. That's the most important thing. You know, we have become a destination that has been through some of our featured businesses. Certainly, Cops and Donuts, as you mentioned, is a big draw. Some of our other bigger wedding event venues have grown over the years, and that's a destination as well. Certainly, the Doherty Hotel. We are a very business-friendly community, so we have a lot of businesses who like to be part of the community and are joining the community on a regular basis.
Mayor, anything to add on that?
One thing that's kind of interesting that we have not mentioned in all of our meetings, we have a hospital right here in the middle of town. And if you look out the window, it's kitty corner to where we're sitting. So it's right downtown and brings a lot of people. Just a great asset to the city.
Absolutely. Well, we enjoyed the drive up here today. Of course, the donuts, like I mentioned, and also learning a little bit about Clare's history right before we started. And as you talked about, Clare is known for its vibrant downtown. We certainly saw it this morning when we drove in. Cops and Donuts, the White House restaurant, the Doherty Hotel give it a ton of personality. Can you talk about how downtown revitalization has really unfolded in recent years?
Well, obviously, it's been an ongoing process, many, many years. I've been sitting in this seat for 20 years, and I don't think we ever really rest. We're always moving. Good leadership, and I'm talking about my city manager and the staff, not myself. We just have so many things going for us. We're so fortunate to live here. I'm not a native as well as Jeremy, but this is my home. This is where
And you might as well be, right? You've been mayor for quite some time. Can you tell folks at home how long you've served for the city?
I've been the mayor since 2004, so I'll be going into my 22nd year. So that's a long time.
So I think you might qualify now as a native.
Yeah.
And so in your time, sort of over those 22 years, what have you noticed about the changes to your downtown?
Oh man, there are so many. I mean, just we never have a building vacant. Somebody moves out, there's somebody with a truck right behind them moving in. We've had great city managers throughout the years. It's been a collaborative effort between the city commission and the rest of the staff, but we've got a really good staff. I'm really, really, really pleased. It's taken a long time to get them to this point, but we're there.
Amazing. And one other thing that we learned a lot about when we were chatting is the placemaking projects that you have underway here. And what really piqued our interest was Art Alley and the Destination Clare Art Walk. How did those get off the ground?
Hand that over to you for a minute.
Oh, sure. So that was actually started by a local artist who came to what we have as the Clare County, Clare Area Arts Council, which is a very active, they actually are housed in our depot, which is a city-owned, fully restored depot, historical railroad depot with a museum in it. And they have part of that facility as well. So they're very active in the community. And they kind of brought it to the city and said, hey, we're interested in having this art sculpture walk and be able to bring artists, like a juried art show into the city. And so every year I'm one of the judges. I sit to help pick out those pieces. And so we have people from all across the country send in proposals to be able
Mhm.
to supply us art sculptures that would go downtown. So those are throughout our downtown and actually expanding out into other parts of the community. We actually loan them out to other communities as well. We've started that. This is our third or fourth year doing this. So our goal is to purchase one or two of those each time so
Sure.
that we'll be able to continue to expand that art throughout the city and especially in the downtown area.
So let's talk about loaning your art out to other communities because I don't think that came up when we were chatting before this. And I think it's super interesting, particularly because our audience are other local governments today. What does that look like and what communities have you worked with?
So we have a few pieces in Farwell. We have some
Mhm.
in Harrison. I think they this year for the first time actually did some work with Elma. So Elma has a couple of pieces there as well. So each year I think they're expanding that. The Arts Council
Sure.
is working with other communities and typically with the artist too, because the artist has to be willing to loan those because all of the pieces are for sale. So
Hmm.
each of the pieces that we have on display is actually kind of explained what the piece is and how it was designed, and then also a price if somebody actually wants to buy that piece, they could actually physically buy it if they want to. And then we always purchase at least one. We try to purchase the winner of the
Sure.
competition, and
Yeah.
then sometimes another piece as well.
So if there are communities on the call today who are interested in hearing more, who can they contact?
Definitely get a hold of the Arts Council. All that information is on our website. They have their own website as well. They just redesigned their website. I don't know what their new address is off the top of my head,
That's
but
okay.
certainly Carol Santini is the president of that. She would be happy to work with any communities, I'm sure.
Incredible. I love that. Well, the other thing that I was super impressed with, we all were really impressed with, was the work on outdoor recreation and that tie in there. So let's talk about the trails here
Mhm.
in the area and what that kind of asset means for your community and the folks that visit.
Yeah, so we have the Pier Marquette Rail Trail, obviously, that goes through town. That was a decade-long project in
Hmm.
the making. Well before I became the city manager, even that was a project that was on the radar through different grant fundings of multiple grants to make that happen. There was what it was affectionately known as the Clare Gap, because you
Hmm.
could come from Midland and come into a certain point, stop, then you had a gap of about 3 miles, and then it picked up outside of town just between here and Farwell. So
Hmm.
luckily, we were able to finish that project up in the last year or so and complete that Clare Gap so that you can ride all the way from Midland to all the way through to Reed City on the same trail. So that's been a fantastic feature for us to be able to bring people into town. We hope they stop obviously in town and have lunch or have a drink or catch a movie at the theater, whatever they can do downtown, because it's right through the downtown area that it actually takes them through.
So, getting that project sort of over the finish line, what would you say was the most challenging piece of that?
Probably the funding piece of it. There
Hmm.
was, a lot of actual grassroots fundraising that took place
Hmm.
from members of the community, and it was started by a grassroots organization in the community to finish that Clare Gap. So there were a number of people who participated in that, and it was a mixture. Our Parks and Rec director went out and got, DNR grants and worked with MDOT and
Hmm.
kind of putting all of those pieces together. And then it was supposed to be done in the, like 2020 timeframe, but
Sure.
COVID kind of
Right.
waylaid that a little bit. So it was a few years after that before we were able to get it done. So COVID certainly put a dent in the timeline, but a lot of it was funding. That was the big challenge.
So a lot of stick-to-itiveness, it sounds like,
Yes,
here in the community and folks who really came together to make that happen,
correct.
which I think we hear often when we're out on the road with Live with the League, but it's always great to hear every community's different flavor and
Mhm.
helping make some of these projects happen. I also want to talk about Lake Shamrock
Sure.
because that's another asset here in the community. Big feature in town. I know you've been working with Eagle on dam and dredging work. Uh, Give us a little overview of what that project is or the history on Lake Shamrock and where that project stands today.
Sure. It is kind of a hidden gem for us. A lot of people don't realize that there's a lake inside the city limits, which is
Right. I
a
had
bit
no idea.
unusual.
Yeah.
So we have lake owners all the way around it. That was another huge project that probably has been, I would say, probably 40 years in the making. 1986, the flood that everybody remembers from 1986, that brought a lot of silt. Our lake is fed by the Tobacco River, so a lot of the silt that came in from that river kind of clogged up the lake over time. So that's been on the radar to be dredged for many, many years. Again, funding always part of the issue and making that happen. So shortly after in 2020, we were able to get a special assessment done where the lake owners, property owners are paying for part of that, and then also the the city is paying for part of it as part of the special assessment. So we were able to get some initial funding, and then luckily we were able to get a bunch of grants and some revenue that we're able to put with that. It's an expensive project to dredge. It's not a huge lake. It's only 60 some acres of property for the lake. But with those pieces put together, we were able to get the dredging done. Should be finishing up this year, which will be nice to get the lake usable again. It had gotten to the point where it was very hard to use to get a boat around because of the amount of silt that was in there. The dam is the piece of that project that goes along with that. Obviously, the costs of everything have risen. Original estimates were about $1 million for the dam. That's up closer to about 7 million.
Okay.
Dams are hugely important. Obviously, Eagle's priority with
Right.
the dam failures, not too far from us here.
Absolutely.
So, funding for that has been a little bit easier to get because of some of those issues. But we're looking forward to that project being finished with design probably end of this year, and then hopefully that completion yet next year.
Amazing. Mayor, what are you hearing from community members or residents about that project or about what they hope that project will sort of bring?
Well, the lake is a very interesting part of Clare.
Hmm.
Um, it was dammed up back in the 60s, and nobody really knew who it belonged to.
Okay.
Um, the people said that they had the rights to the middle of the lake.
Sure.
We never disputed it, but we never figured out who really had it. Well, a couple of years ago, and I'm not exactly how it came about, but they found out that the city of Clare owned it. Once they found out the city owned it, something started to happen.
Sure.
The good part started to happen.
Sure.
Um, it's a definitely an asset to us, but it's been controversial over the years. And I think we're finally getting a good grip on it.
Public access.
Yeah, and it looks so nice right now. Oh, I've been here 50 years and I've never seen it look as good as it does right now. So that's been a good.
And the community is excited about it, I'm sure, with the work that you're able to do from the city aspect of
Yes.
things.
We have a lot of people come to us and say when they were kids, they water skied on it. Now, we don't know, we haven't been able to really pin that one down.
Sure.
Right now, it's a no wait, but people are very on board. They're they're very happy to see something happening to it. And I think we're going to be able to swim in it here before too long.
Beach.
Yeah,
Public
it's a public
beach,
beach.
public access.
Yeah.
Yeah, incredible. It's an interesting project. And again, I think really adds to the diversity of resources and the assets that you have in this community. And like I said, certainly something that I didn't know about. So it was great hearing that there's so much here.
Well, another interesting fact is in this little small town, we don't have a lot of followers. We
Mhm.
have a lot of leaders, and they come to us and tell us what they're going to do. We don't have to go looking too hard to find something to do in this little town.
Yeah, it sounds like it. I mean, the Art
It's,
Council putting all of that work into that project,
yes.
and hearing all of the other great projects that have been sort of gaining momentum here, that you've got folks and really invested community members who want to see good things happen.
And we have a lot of um, industry in the city of Clare, and
Yeah,
it's worldwide, and
right.
that's kind of another drawing point, which we'll get
Yeah,
here.
I would love to talk about that next. So, Clare is obviously a small city, but it has three industrial parks and a municipal airport. Another fun fact that I didn't know. So how are these economic tools helping you attract and support businesses? I'm really interested in the business relationships, outside of what we talked about in terms of having these great community partnerships, figuring out funding for some of these programs, and updates. You're business friendly as well. And I think that's a really unique aspect here.
That is, and we are very user friendly. We have tried to cut the red tape out before they come here looking for something so that
Sure.
if they want to come in, that's okay. Here, let's go. And they're really surprised by that. And the word gets out, and we have just had a wonderful relationship with our industry.
Yeah, I'd like to talk specifically about the airport for a moment and then probably about the industrial park. So there is a municipal airport here.
Correct.
And I know that you're thinking about or putting in some updates to accept some larger aircraft. And I also know that you have an interesting um, policy in place about what you charge for fuel here. So can you walk us through the history on that municipal airport and some
Sure.
of those highlights?
Yeah, so the airport has been a longstanding, very important piece of the community. It is very heavily used for
Hmm.
a smaller municipal airport. As far as the gas goes, we do strive to maintain, if at all possible, we keep our, profit margin very, very, very little so that we can say we have the cheapest gas in the state. And that does help a lot of people flying in, or if they're flying across, from, some other state, they'll stop here in Michigan at Clare because they know it's cheap fuel, and then they can move on to Oshkosh or some of the other, bigger places that they're flying
A
in.
very smart tactic,
Yeah,
by the
yeah. So
way.
it certainly helps us with our traffic. We have a lot of local pilots. We have a very active airport advisory board that's filled with pilots who have been flying for decades and have a lot of care and passion about this municipal airport. We are trying to look to expand the runway as much as we can. We're kind of
Mhm.
limited by some rows, so we can only go as far as we can go without making tunnels or viaducts or some other very, very expensive add-on. But we
Mhm.
would like to add a little bit of length to our runway. That's in our kind of current 5 to 10 year plan to be able to accept slightly larger jet planes. We do have some turboprops and things that already do fly in,
Sure.
but it's very active.
And let's talk a little bit about the three industrial parks, and give us a sort of overview of what that looks like.
Yeah, so we historically we had one that was on this the south end of town, and that filled up. Was started by a group. We have an industrial development corporation
Mhm.
that has an agreement with the city that kind of oversees that and shops those out and does a lot of the groundwork on those. Was started by a group of local businessmen who were passionate about it. The story I've been told is a lot of the stuff that was started, they all went and signed personal notes at the bank and said, "We're going to just get this done because we care about Clare." So we were able to fill that one on the south end, which led us to buy some land on the north end of town. And that filled up just shortly after I have been here in the last 5 years. I'm just starting my 6th year here. So we filled that one up and said, well, now what do? We need to buy some more land. So luckily we were able to find another 95 acres just across the road from our South Industrial Park. We were able to purchase that actually with an agreement from a local businessman who said, hey, I've got some money and I've been treated very well by Clare. Clare's treated me very well. Here's a no interest, zero loan, and you can purchase that property and pay me back as you sell the property off. So that just shows again how the community support is there, and we've been
Mhm.
able to do so many things because of leaders like Pat was saying, who step up and say, "Yep, this is a good thing. I want to be part of it, and here's how I can help."
Right. And part of that help too, includes the relationships that you have with your neighboring townships. And I want to chat about that too. Can you explain a little bit about how your relationship with your neighboring townships works and how that's been beneficial to both you and these townships?
Sure. So we have some very good urban cooperation agreements in place with our townships. Like
Mhm.
most cities, you're surrounded by townships, and,
Right.
and a lot of times kind of landlocked into the space that you can expand into.
Right.
We have some area on the north end, kind of, people think of Clare as the downtown, but there's really a lot of Clare that's up on the hill where the more fast food restaurants and those type of things are at.
Sure.
And certainly a lot of that is in Grant Township, but we
Hmm.
have a agreement with them basically that's um, works for both communities where we
Right.
share tax revenue. We have places that come in who say we need city water and city sewer or else we
Hmm.
can't come in.
Hmm.
So obviously the township can't provide that. So as the city, we're able to annex in that property, provide those services so that they can come in, and then we basically share back the tax revenue that they would have received had they gotten that on their own. So
Mhm.
it's a win-win for both communities. We were able to have a business come in that was looking to come in, and we've had several, even since I've been here in the last 5 years, Culver's, Tractor Supply, Big B, several other, bigger, corporate entities have come in on the north end, and that should continue because of the amount of traffic that's up there. We have, especially during the summer, that's a very, very busy spot up on the
Very
hill,
popular,
Clare. So
yes.
it's the gateway to the north, truly, and everybody
Yeah.
stops. So.
Yeah, absolutely. Well, Mayor, I want to know from a leadership standpoint, what has helped Claire move forward with so many of these efforts? Do you have any advice or lessons learned that you could share with other small communities?
Well, be user friendly. That's the key to the whole thing. We try to cut the paperwork down. We streamline things so that when you come, we're ready for you. We're not going to drag it out for 6 months of different kind of licensing and
Hoop,
so forth.
those things.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So usually when it starts, it happens really, really fast. I mean, and we have people come in from other areas and say, we can't believe how user friendly you are here and helpful. I think it's just it's small town America.
Mm-hmm.
We'll do whatever it takes.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. Mindset and community support sounds really incredible here. One challenge we're hearing from communities across the state, both big and small, is housing. And I know we haven't touched on that yet. Jeremy, Mayor Humphrey, what are you seeing in Clare? What are the gaps and what kind of support would help move the needle?
Well, we struggle like most communities do with
Yeah.
housing. Certainly, we have some apartments. We have, some low and mid, income apartments, and that's great. We
Mhm.
have some pilots and some different things in place to help facilitate those. Individual personal housing. I can speak to firsthand. Trying to move in and find a house was very,
Right.
very difficult,
Mhm.
and I think that's an experience that a lot of people find just regular, single family housing, but multifamily and even some other different types of housing is something that we would love to work towards.
Mhm.
I've got a couple developers that I'm working with that hopefully are looking to do some of that, but certainly it's difficult sometimes for them. They're looking to us to partner to say like, okay, can you help us access different funds or
Sure.
grant, streams or some of those type of things. So working with them to try to figure out what avenues make sense because they're not going to build it unless it's economically feasible for them to do that. So
Right.
that's always the challenge. Finding space to do it is the other piece. Where
Mhm.
do you put those things? Again, you know, we've got township property, so that probably will be part of it where,
Mhm.
maybe this goes on some township stuff that gets annexed into the city using some of those agreements. So that will help us facilitate some of that housing, but we need that. We have some pretty big corporations and a couple new ones that are coming in who are going to be hiring, hundreds of people. And where do you house those people? That's always the
Right.
question. They're going to have to drive from wherever to get here. And even that, our neighboring communities have the same issue. So
Right.
where do they find those same housing units?
Right. It's really a pressure that's being felt all across the United States and
Yes.
something that we talk about a lot here through the league in Michigan. And I want to connect those local efforts that you all are working on and talking about to what's happening at the state level. So, of course, we're joined by Jen Rigtrink from our advocacy team. Jen, last week, the league hosted a press conference alongside state legislative leaders, local government officials from across Michigan, and a number of housing partners to launch the My Home program, a new campaign and set of tools to address the state's housing crisis. Can you walk us through what the program includes and what local leaders should know about the opportunities it creates?
Thanks, Emily. Yeah, so last week the league had a big day on Tuesday morning.
Yes.
We held an event at City Hall
Mm.
with Mayor Shore, our board members, some of past presidents,
Mhm.
other local officials, as well as legislators
Right.
from both sides of the aisle to um, unveil a proposal that we called the My Home program.
Mhm.
And it's really a response to the housing crisis in Michigan and a way that will produce homes in the end. Right now, there's the standard programs that are out there that have
Right.
been funding projects. But there's a big push, and I think many of our members can remember in lame duck last year, we faced a preemption fight, and those same bills are coming back. We've heard over and over again that they are going to be introduced in a couple of weeks, in the next week.
Yeah.
The latest information is the end of August, so that is this week.
Mhm.
We could possibly see
Mhm.
preemption bills, and while um, we know our members want to protect that local decision making,
Mhm.
and we can play defense all day long. We actually wanted to put a policy piece that we thought could encourage and help make those zoning changes that are being pushed,
Mhm.
but still include community context,
Right.
especially because a preemption effort is a one size fits all kind of cookie cutter across the state. Even our members who have already done a lot of these zoning reform um, best practices, those would be wiped out,
Mhm.
and just have a blanket by right, duplexes everywhere,
Mhm.
which duplexes is a great, important piece of housing.
Right.
But not all housing types belong, everywhere or right next to. You want it to fit in with that fabric of that neighborhood. And you want to allow for the choice of the community, that local decision making of making sure that community context is within those. So we unveiled the My Housing program
Yeah.
that is a grant
Mhm.
loan as well as capacity building
Mhm.
for locals. So there is a portion that would provide funding to the housing readiness
Mhm.
grant program that currently is completely prescribed to.
Mhm.
And there's not been any identified funding in the new budget, the upcoming budget,
Mhm.
to keep that program going, as well as creating a platform or website where municipalities could put their housing opportunities up, and builders and developers from across the state, from across the country, could look and see what's going on and what are the needs in certain communities, probably places they would have never thought to go
Right.
visit.
Maybe
Or
like Clare.
yes,
Exactly.
yep.
Yes.
And then there's a grant program
Mhm.
that would provide funding for uh, per unit new construction
Mhm.
or rehab,
Mhm.
but not to exceed a third of that construction cost per unit,
Right.
as well as a loan revolving loan fund. And we believe
Mhm.
that revolving loan fund is going to last beyond the program. So what we're proposing is 5 years,
Mhm.
$160 million annually
Mhm.
to help fund these things. And the last piece of that funding wise is to keep the employer funded assisted housing program going. Mishta rolled out a pilot program earlier
Mhm.
this year,
Yep.
but there is not any money. We want to see that funded for at least 5 more years where employers can engage in helping with housing for workers, whether
Mhm.
that is donating land for a project, down payment assistance, a donation to a housing trust fund, whether
Sure.
that's, a local or county, regional kind of trust fund. Mishta is matching those to a point and really helping employers try to be active in that housing space, because we have heard, especially from some of our partners at the different local chambers, they have interest from businesses. They're trying
Yep.
to hire, they get somebody who conditionally accepts, and then that individual cannot find housing either in the price range that
Mhm.
they can afford or in the condition
Right.
that they want to live in.
Right.
So, and then the piece here for the municipalities is that to be eligible for this particular pot of funding, a municipality would have had to complete 50% of some recommended zoning best practices.
Mhm.
We took these recommendations right out of things that have been in the preemption bills,
Right.
as well as MISHDA's housing ready best practice guideline or
Sure.
guide they have online. And so these are 14 different points that a community, many of our municipalities are contacting me saying, we've already done these
Okay.
things.
We're ready.
Where do we sign
We're
up?
ready. Yes. Yes.
And and it hopefully will encourage others to continue to go or make
Mhm.
some. And again, it has that community context of what works in that community. It
Mhm.
is not supposed to be some kind of workaround or loophole
Right.
to avoid preemption. We know that these things are important, but we also know that builders and developers are not building housing because of local zoning reforms. I
Right.
haven't had one builder or developer tell me I couldn't get a project done because of a parking ordinance.
Mhm.
And this is one thing I think that's different in other efforts that have been brought forward or even preemption
Sure.
is that we worked with some builders and developers to get feedback, to hear
Mhm.
what is the need. And that need is really to fill the gap
Mhm.
between what something costs
Mhm.
and then what's affordable at 120% area median income and below. So that's why those loans and grants go directly to builders and developers.
Right. And this was such not to toot our own horn, but it was a really impressive press conference. There was wide support from legislators. A lot of our members were there. Can you talk a little bit more about the support that came together and so quickly to make that happen? Because this isn't something that we've necessarily the plan, the proposal wasn't something that we've been writing for 6 months and
Yeah.
coming up with. I mean, this was, I say we, but the
Yeah.
team really has been working on this for
Yeah.
a very short time, right? The actual proposal itself. Of course, this is work we've done for years and things we've
Right.
been talking about for years. But I'm curious about the process and putting that together because it was quick and also the wide support that we've seen.
Yeah, so that policy piece was definitely something that just came together in the last few weeks.
Right.
We have been talking about housing for years now,
Right.
and with all types of housing stakeholders.
Right.
One of the biggest being our members.
Sure.
But we really thought, again, we could continue to be in a defensive mode, or we could put something forward that's flexible and that really all stakeholders in the housing sphere should really support, because in the end, it's encouraging zoning reforms. It's
Mhm.
assisting municipalities to actually make those or continue to make those. And then it's the result is homes. So we believe
Right.
in that 5 years. If you fund that program for 5 years, that the output would be over 10,000 homes to be delivered. And we really asked the question of how many homes will preemption bring you or bring the state? No one has been able to give us an answer for that. I don't know if there is one,
Right.
but we believe this policy. But we did. We worked with builders and developers that were right there at the event with us.
Right.
We had Allen Edwin Homes.
Mhm.
We had RDS Management out
Mhm.
of the Bay City area.
Mhm.
We had Renovari Development that's
Mhm.
been doing housing in many of our communities across the state. And then, like you said, legislators, our members, we had support from other local government groups that showed up at the press conference. But we kept this very close to the vest,
Yeah.
and wanted to roll it out so that, here's our proposal. Still time for plenty of input. It's
Right.
not a baked cake.
Right.
This is a
We
cake.
love that folks want to sign up now,
Right.
but we're not quite
Right.
at that point yet.
I have been amazed by the number of emails I've gotten from um, folks who do housing
Yeah.
in cities and,
Right.
and villages across and townships across the state, who are like, "Where's the application? How do
Right.
I apply?" To our members asking questions about, you know, they think they either one would already
Mm-hmm.
be eligible,
Right.
or asking, specific questions about a lot size or a dwelling size and things like that. So there's a ton of interest.
Mm-hmm.
And again, right now we're in that phase of we've put that out there and let's receive the feedback and the input. But at this,
Continue to make it stronger, of course.
correct.
Yeah, with our partner.
But I think the one big difference in this is that folks that actually build and develop homes and housing projects were involved.
Mm-hmm.
Housing advocates are very important, but we have a lot of housing advocates that are engaging on policy that have never built a home. They've never had to go through the process of putting a pro forma together. They don't know how those stacks work. They don't know the process of some of those federal funding or state funding requirements of getting something through site plan approval,
Right.
only to go to get the funding from
Mhm.
one of the programs, told you can't get as much funding as you were asking for, having to go back to the drawing board.
Mhm.
And then the municipality is, well, you said you were going to do this.
Mm-hmm.
And not understanding sometimes that disconnect of that developer had full intentions of doing X, but then
Right.
still has a gap
Mm-hmm.
in, to make that project happen the way it was. And so we're hoping that this program could help still fill some of those gaps and be layered with existing, the housing TIF legislation, the tax increment financing, being eligible for housing projects and project housing activities in a project. To be layered with those types of tools will help us get more housing done across the state.
Right. And I think that's something that no matter who you are, you can agree on. We need more housing, period.
Yes, period.
So for communities who are hearing this or maybe just hearing about this, how can they learn more about the proposal? And how can our members or partners continue to stay involved to help support a project, a plan like this?
Yeah, so we do have a page on our website. So
Mhm.
if you go to www.mml.org backslash
I mean, housing
my
backslash.
MI homes program.
Okay. And I'm sure we will post that in the chat so
Yes.
folks can click that link directly.
Yep.
And like I said, support.
Yes.
I know we've heard a lot of support and seen a lot of support from our members like Claire who are interested in housing projects and need housing in their communities. We had a ton of folks join us for that press conference. But how can our members continue to support?
Yeah. Well, there's actually a couple of ways, which is
Yeah.
great. We need your housing stories. We want to
Yeah.
hear about what's going on in your community and how this program may or may not assist in getting you to your housing goals. But we also want you to talk to your legislators and to the governor's office, to MISTA, and talk about your support and why you think this program, really could be helpful and fill a gap in, again, and result more homes in Michigan.
Absolutely. Well, aside from that big news, because that was a big splash last week and continues to sort of gain this momentum and conversation, what else is going on in Lansing?
So we saw last week the House was in,
Mhm.
held some committees. There were a couple of Senate committees last week as well, but the Senate did not hold session last week.
Mhm.
House is scheduled to be in again this week for session, and the Senate I don't believe is going to be in tomorrow, but is scheduled to be in on Wednesday. A lot of focus right now around the budget, what's going
Surprise,
on.
surprise. Yep.
Yes. I think the biggest news in there is that the triangle, which
Mhm.
is the governor and the leaders from both chambers,
Yeah.
the speaker and the Senate majority leader, are supposed to sit down and
Mhm.
actually have a face-to-face meeting. And we'll see what comes of that and how that kind of dictates what's next.
Right.
But
All right. We will stay tuned again on that budget piece. Feels like a recurring theme over the last few sessions of Live with the League. And I know we have something else that we want to do today.
yes.
So go ahead, Jen.
Mayor, on behalf of the league, we want to present this to the city. So thank you for hosting us today. We
So-
appreciate being here. We appreciate hearing more about Claire's story and all the exciting things and opportunities that are here in Clare.
Yeah, and we'll have to take a pic of this so we can post it because it's some artwork that we presented to the city. But I think to close this out, I have one last question for Claire. Of course, you've told us that the city is known for its festivals. And I'm curious if there were one festival to come to for folks who might not have been here or might, want to consider coming back, what should they attend?
Well, I would say certainly our biggest festival, and we are known as the City of Festivals, along with
Yeah.
the Gateway to the North, would be the Irish Festival. So we just celebrated our 50th Irish Festival. That's our biggest by far. It's usually almost a week long, brings thousands of people into town. We close the streets. We have bonfires. We have all kinds of stuff going on. Big acts, music acts. All of the restaurants and bars are open. Lots of green beer, celebrating St. Patrick's Day, but a lot of other events as well. So that's our biggest and our best probably festival. We have a lot of other ones as well, but that's the big one.
All right. So that's the one you would recommend. And I learned today that Clare is named after County Clare in Ireland.
Correct.
And that is why there is such a huge
Yeah,
Irish
why you see
influence
the-
here.
The leprechauns
And the Irish
40
Festival.
clovers and the Irish Festival of ML.
Yeah, so come on by. Mayor, do you have an event, a favorite event other than the Irish Festival you would recommend folks attend?
All of them.
All of them. All right. So we'll come back for the art walk, the art alley, all of that.
Yes.
So if you haven't been to Clare, we highly recommend. And in addition to that, like we talked about multiple times, Cops and Donuts is a great stop that you can make. But before we wrap up, a couple of reminders. First, registration is open for our 2025 convention happening September 17th through 19th in Grand Rapids. You can find all the details at the link that we are posting in the chat for you now. Another option, applications are open now for the Elected Officials Academy Board. If you're an elected official looking for a leadership opportunity on the board, you can submit a letter of interest by Wednesday, September 3rd. We're going to drop some additional details on what that board does and what's required to apply in the chat. So take a peek at that link. And our new online learning platform is live. We've talked about this a bit. You can explore on-demand courses anytime in the League portal. So go to my.mml.org to log into that. I know we talked about housing a ton today. We already have a course in there on adaptive reuse. We're going to be adding some additional courses in there specific to housing. And coming up in early 2026, we'll have one on housing TIF and lots more to come to complement all of the things that we've been talking about. Thanks again for tuning in. We'll see you next time on Live with the League on September 8th, where we will feature our Community Excellence finalists, Community Excellence Award finalists ahead of convention. We'll see you then. Have a great week.